And now, it's time for Colin's preseason college postseason ranking about Colin's picks who will finish the season when the season starts. What the is this? All right, fine. Here's the preseason postseason top 10. Number 10.
Number 10 is a shocker. Utah will win the Pac-12. Schedule, easiest in the conference. They have 3 go-either-way games, all at home. USC, Washington, and Oregon. All will be high-end bowl teams. They get all of them at home. Quarterback, not great. JUCO kid, really talented. But it is not a program that has ever been built on the quarterback. They do it on line play. And they're going to be the Michigan of the Pac-12. They return 5 junior and senior starters on the offensive line. Multiple NFL guys. They will go into every football game this year with the best offensive line on a weak schedule. They also return 8 starters on defense, and Kyle Whittingham is arguably the best defensive coach in the entire conference. Utah, schedule, line play, coaching, and returning starters, 8 on defense, wins the Pac-12.
Number 9.
LSU has a lot more talent than everybody not named Alabama, but here's the problem. Their schedule is brutal in the middle of it. In a 5-week stretch, at Florida, Ole Miss, Alabama, at Arkansas. Those are middle to November late losses potentially. Brutal schedule, October, November. Secondly, the quarterback, as usual, it's LSU, is average. Brandon Harris, 54% completion rate. I can't figure out why this franchise, this program is so average at quarterback. Here's what they're going to do. With Leonard Fournette, they're going to run the football a ton and rely on defense. But you're not winning the SEC, in my opinion, this year with multiple top teams with that recipe. LSU 9.
Number 8.
You're not going to believe this, but Iowa. Listen, do I think they have the 8 most talent? No. But their schedule is, I don't know if there's an easier schedule for a Power 5 team in the country. They will be favored in every game except the game against Michigan in mid-November at home. So it's an embarrassingly weak schedule. Out of conference, it's laughable. Their quarterback situation is C.J. Beathard. He's a more talented Connor Cook. He'll probably be the second or third quarterback taken. I don't think he's a first-round talent, but he's better than Connor Cook at Michigan State. They return 7 players on the defensive side, including an all-conference linebacker and maybe the best player in the conference, Desmond King, a corner. This is going to be the year Iowa actually can play with everybody in the country, not name Clemson, maybe not name Clemson. So I have Iowa at number 8.
Number 7.
Florida State, I'm not quite as high as everybody else is. Their schedule is actually very tough by ACC standards. Even their out-of-conference games, at Louisville, Ole Miss, tough. They have to go to Miami. Clemson's better than they are. They end the season hosting Florida. Their quarterback play, so the schedule by ACC standards is really tough. The quarterback, Sean McGuire, he's really average. They also bring back the entire offense, mostly Dalvin Cook, the running back. That's going to be exceptional. They're going to be, at times, very limited throwing the football. They're going to win a ton of football games. But I think the schedule's too tough. I think they're too average at quarterback, and eventually they'll be beaten by a team like Clemson late.
Number 6.
Ohio State. There are so many things I like about Ohio State. The schedule, though, is fairly tough. At Oklahoma, at Wisconsin, at Michigan State. And they have to play Michigan, and they thumped them last year, and a Michigan team that will be better and more experienced than them on both lines. Their quarterback is J.T. Barrett, who I love. Mobile, smart, coachable, love him. And I think he will carry him to, let's say, like a win over a really tough road game late. But here's the problem. They don't return any starters. 3 offensive starters return and 3 defensive starters return. They had a tremendous recruiting class, second in the country. You go look at the history of college football. You tell me somebody that had 6 returning starters and won a national championship. Pretty tough schedule, no returning starters. By the end of the year, I think they're a really good football team. But I would say that game at Oklahoma early, they could be in some trouble.
Number 5.
You're not going to believe this. Alabama does not make the Final Four playoff. Schedule really, really tough. The toughest schedule Nick Saban has ever had. USC, they'll win that game, but they're at Ole Miss, they're at Arkansas, they're at Tennessee, they're at LSU. Those are brutal road games, and they struggled with Tennessee last year, and they struggled with Arkansas last year, and they're at both, at LSU, at Ole Miss. This is arguably, now they got some cupcakes in there. This is Nick Saban's toughest schedule yet. Quarterback, unsettled and unspectacular. They do return only 11 starters. So I think Nick will coach them up late in the season. But I see too many landmines, unspectacular quarterback play. I love their receivers, but I think they'll be a fairly conservative team early, and the SEC is simply too deep this year. Alabama 5.
Number 4.
My surprise team in the country is Tennessee. Schedule easy early and easy late. In the middle, they got to go to Georgia, new coach, got to go to A&M. They've got better personnel. They get to host Alabama. But their schedule early, first 3, and their schedule late, Kentucky, Missouri at home at Vandy, a lot of momentum. They'll be favored in every game except Alabama, and I've checked, it's a 1.5-point spread. And they gave them fits last year, and Alabama was significantly better. Quarterback, Josh Dobbs, returning starter, 15 TDs, also ran for 11, 60% completion rate. Returning starters, massive, 9 on offense, 8 on defense. All sorts of veteran, upper-class NFL bodies. They remind me of that Auburn team that you didn't know a lot of the names that had Cam Newton, but they had dominating upperclassmen. They gave Alabama trouble last year. They got hot, if you remember, at the end of last year, how well they played. Between workable schedule, returning starting quarterback, momentum and returning starters, Tennessee will play in the Final Four.
Number 3.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got a tough early schedule, Ohio State and Texas, but it's really easy late. They've got a star quarterback, Baker Mayfield, strong, big arm, athletic, 36 TDs, 7 picks. And they return 13 starters, many of them high-profile players. I think they win that Ohio State game early, vault up the polls, Oklahoma 3.
Number 2.
Michigan. Yep, I know. I thought it would take 3 years, but they are this year, without question, the best offensive line, defensive line combo in the conference. Perhaps the best perhaps the best defensive line in the country. Their schedule's not easy. At Michigan State, at Iowa, at Ohio State. But you're allowed to lose one of those games because they're going to trounce about 9 people on that schedule. They return 8 offensive and 6 defensive starters. John O'Korn will be quarterback. You could be concerned, but Harbaugh's a quarterback coach.
Number 1.
I don't think there's any question. Clemson has to be number 1. The schedule will include 9 routes. They have to go to Florida State. That's their toughie. But why Florida State has a mediocre senior quarterback, they have Deshaun Watson, who will be the number 1 college quarterback in America this year. He is a shorter version of Cam Newton. They return 8 offensive starters. They lost a ton on defense, but they don't face elite quarterbacks in their conference. And they've got several 5- and 4-star guys defensively in the box that got some time or ready to step in. This is the easiest schedule, best quarterback, and enough returning starters. Clemson's my number 1 team in college football by the end of the year going into the playoffs. So, in review, Clemson, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Tennessee will end up in my Final Four. Bama's schedule is just absurdly tough on the road in those late Saturday night SEC games, and I don't think they're dynamic enough at quarterback, and they've got a lot of young starters early in the season. 877-757-HERD, it's the Herd.